I recently made a video about what new leagues EA should look at adding to their game for FC27, and I said if that video did well, I would make another one talking about some more competitions that are missing from FC26. Well, currently that video is the second most viewed on my channel, so here is the follow-up video as promised. 15 other competitions that EA should look at adding in FC27. Seeing as I spoke about new leagues already, I won't be including cup competitions that are linked to those leagues. For example, I included the Brazilian League in that video, therefore I won't talk about the Brazilian Cup competitions in this one. I'm going to speak more about continental and international tournaments this time. Trust me, there are some huge competitions that are missing from FC26. Let's start with a general idea that missed out on the top 15, and that is youth football. Some cool tournaments that add to the game for youth players could be the Under-21 Euros or the Under-20 World Cup, and then at club level the UEFA Youth League. These get a decent amount of coverage in real life and would be nice to see in FC27. A lot of the youth players in the World Cup or the Euros are already in the game, although I do admit that adding youth football at club level may be a little bit more difficult and less of a priority for EA. So into the list at 15, I have the OFC Nations Cup. I'm starting off rogue here, and for those wondering, this is the international tournament for nations in Oceania. I think that every international team should be an FC27, whether licensed or generic, therefore having a tournament that represents every continent is also important. Out of the world's 6 continents, Oceania is the weakest when it comes to football. New Zealand, as expected, usually dominate this cup. At 14, we have a one-match tournament by the name of the Finalissima. This is basically like the Super Cup but in international football. The winners of the Euros and the Copa America go head-to-head to win this cup. Previously, Messi lifted this trophy after Argentina beat Italy in 2023. I already covered youth football earlier, but I had this crazy idea that I've never seen spoken about within the community. What if the Olympics was in FC27? Now, I don't mean the whole thing, just the football part. 16 nations take part with the under-23 teams to win gold, silver or bronze. Spain won the gold medal in 2024, and I think this would be a really cool, unique challenge to take over a country in the Olympics and try to win something completely different. You would also only be allowed to use under-23 players, which adds an extra element of uniqueness. There's tons of bigger competitions that I'll speak about later, but I do hope that so far you're enjoying the video. If you are, a like would be really appreciated to help support my content, and subscribe too, as I'm regularly posting unique career mode content on this channel. Right, on to number 12, and that is the AFC Champions League over in Asia. This would be higher on the list, but the tournament is in FC26 already, just unlicensed. So in terms of priority, a little bit less important, although the proper licensing would be nice. I can't see that happening anytime soon, as eFootball currently holds the rights to that tournament. Let's talk about a world famous competition next, and that's the European Championships, also known as the Euros. The reason that this is so low on the list is similar to what I said about the AFC Champions League, in that the competition is already in the game, but it's just currently unlicensed. I will excuse EA for not getting a full license when the official logos and graphics haven't been confirmed for the next Euros, but the reason that I did add this to the list is the fact that the competition doesn't even have the correct formatting. As a lot of you may already know, there's only 29 national teams in FC26 and not enough European nations to have a Euros with 24 teams. So in FC26 we still have the old format of using 16 teams that hasn't been used in the last 3 Euros and probably won't be used again in the future. It just goes to show the lack of depth in FC26 international football. To partner the Euros, let's talk about European qualifiers. Again, no real qualifying when it comes to the World Cup or the Euros due to the lack of nations in FC26. I guess I can supplement this point by adding that I would like to see qualifiers for every international tournament in the game too. I just chose Europe as an example, seeing as the qualifiers do come with their own graphics and broadcasting. Let's head back to club football, and at 9 I have the CAF Champions League in Africa. I spoke about Africa being underrepresented in my new leagues video, and again I'll mention that point. So far only 3 African clubs have been in the FIFA and FC series, and all of them were from South Africa. I previously championed the leagues of South Africa, Egypt, Morocco and Tunisia potentially being added in FC27. Having the Champions League to go with that would be great if it meant having a lot of other clubs from Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Algeria, etc. in the rest of the world part of the game. EA should do something similar to what they do with the South American clubs, where they have like the best Peruvian, Chilean and Colombian teams. Similarly, I'll make the same point for the CONCACAF Champions League of North America. Again, plenty of work to do in terms of adding teams. The MLS is the only league in FC26. The Liga MX could be a licensing possibility in the future for EA, and it is the Mexican clubs that tend to be the most successful in this tournament. Again, like the Copa Libertadores in FC26, adding the best clubs from every other nation like Costa Rica, America, Canada, Honduras, etc. would be good too. Staying in North America, I think the CONCACAF Gold Cup should also be in the game. This is the international tournament of this continent, similar to the Euros but for North America. USA and Mexico are the only nations currently licensed in FC26, but like I said already, I don't mind having generic national teams in the game with a mix of real players already in FC26, accompanied with generic players. Just missing out on the top 5, I have the UEFA Nations League, a relatively new tournament that was introduced into European football to replace international friendlies. Not that it's the most relevant tournament in football, but it has a lot of top nations competing in it. It does come with its own promotion and relegation format along with unique graphics. EA have had the UEFA license since before this tournament even existed, so why is it not in FC26, you may ask? Again, EA haven't bothered adding in enough nations to really make this tournament work. There's also a complicated element where nations can potentially qualify for the Euros through the Nations League that maybe EA don't want the headache of adding, but come on EA, add this in the game. In 5th place, I have the Asian Cup, the main international cup for Asia. Again, the same issues around international football. Asia has one nation in the game. A round of applause, EA, everyone. I mean, I feel like a broken record, but generic nations and players could help with making this tournament work with the right amount of teams. The official licensing is in eFootball, but I am fine with an unlicensed version being added in FC27. Also to mention, with Asia, they do have other competitions internationally for different regions in the continent, like the Gulf Cup, for example. At 4th place, we've got the African Cup of Nations, also known as AFCON. Look, EA may have an excuse when it comes to African leagues that having them in FC26 isn't really that important as they aren't very strong. As much as Africa produces great players, they do leave for European leagues most of the time, but when it comes to national teams, it's another story. Morocco and Ghana are the only African nations in FC26, but what about Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Senegal, South Africa, Tunisia? There's tons of good teams there, and a lot of the players are already in FC26. Again, I'm not against generic teams or players where they're needed. What is also cool about this tournament is that it takes place in the winter, so if you're playing in one of the top leagues in Europe, any African players in your club may get called up for international duty in the middle of the season, which does add a bit more of a challenge to your save. EA may have added the Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana for South American clubs in FC26, but when it comes to the international side of things, once again, it's bare bone. The Copa America is one of the biggest international tournaments in the world, and yet it's missing from the game. Needless to say that South America has contributed a lot to football, and yet we only have one national team in FC26. 5-time World Cup winners Brazil aren't in the game, along with Uruguay, Colombia, Ecuador, the list goes on. What more can really be said? We need this tournament in FC26. At number 2, a club competition that's never been looked at by EA, and that's the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, I know what you're thinking, EA lost the FIFA license a few years ago and that's why it's not in the game. What's bizarre to me is that the tournament was never in the game in the first place, even back when EA had the FIFA license. Although the tournament back then was smaller than what we saw this summer, it was still a missed opportunity. Football Manager only acquired the FIFA license this year and already planned to add the Club World Cup. I don't see what was so difficult. I know a lot of people are against the expanded version and just see it as a glorified pre-season friendly cup, but there's a lot of prize money at stake there, and I just find it cool seeing clubs from all over the globe competing against each other. It definitely deserves a place in FC27, even if it is unlicensed, but God forbid, EA may need to add a few extra clubs from Africa and Oceania to make it work. But at number 1, it is only right that the biggest competition in sport is at the top, and that's the FIFA World Cup. Of course, was previously in the game for many years, but since the last World Cup in 2022, EA lost the FIFA license, and currently there's a big possibility that next year's tournament in North America is not going to be making an appearance in FC26. So far, it's only due to appear in Football Manager, but I believe the license is still up for grabs if EA want it. There is an unlicensed version of it in FC26 to be fair, but again, like the Euros, it has the wrong format. Due to the lack of nations in the game, EA can't even replicate the old format with 32 teams, never mind the new one that we're going to be seeing in the new year with 48. In particular, there's a lack of nations outside of Europe, which makes playing the World Cup in FC26 very bare bone. Again, EA just add generic nations into the game. eFootball have done that and have doubled the amount of national teams in their game, even when they don't really need them. So again, in conclusion, EA do have a lot of work to do. On top of adding some strong leagues like Mexico, Brazil, Japan and Greece to name a few, we also need to see the Champions League for every continent, also every continental cup in international football, along with the World Cup, the Club World Cup, Nations League. So yeah, not much there for EA to work on. And like I said, having these tournaments unlicensed is fine if they have the correct format and qualifying. When it comes to international teams, again, generic assets are the answer. So yeah, let me know in the comments, which competitions do you want to see in FC27? Did I miss any out? And if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate a like rating to support the channel and subscribe to for FC26 and football gaming content. And yeah, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.